Hi, it's Monica Mobley, the North Central Science Specialist, and today we're going to be talking about creating digital escape rooms. So there are a couple of things that you need to do when you're deciding you're going to build a digital escape room. We're going to specifically look first at how to do this in this session on a Google form. So the thing that you first need to remember is you need to pick a high quality assignment that you can turn into a Google form. What you want to avoid happening is choosing a worksheet and making students busy in the act of completing a DOK1 type of worksheet when they really should be doing something that is up to the normal standard of rigor that we want students to be exposed to in the classroom. So we want to use digital escape rooms because they're engaging for students, but we don't want to use those kind of as a foible to disguise what is just a traditional worksheet activity. It's not so much that we don't want students to do worksheets because they're not engaging. The main reason that we don't want students to do worksheets is that they don't engage with the content on the same level that they need to. So what I have chosen to use for my digital escape room is actually a data nugget. So in a data nugget, yes, it's paper, it looks kind of like a worksheet, but the students are actually doing a lot of reading and analysis and they're having to graph. So they're actually participating in a science activity. So I guess when I say worksheets, I mean things like matching, fill in the blank. We're really looking for something that is up to the levels that we know we need to get students if they're going to meet our content standards, but also if they're going to be more successful on the ACT Aspire. So data nuggets, if you're not familiar with those, they're really for upper elementary and above, all the way up into undergraduate students. But what a data nugget is it actually takes some real research that scientists have done, and there are various different versions of it, but the students are actually reviewing the research, and they're actually interacting with the data that the scientists have produced and doing some graphing of their own and some data analysis. So it's quite a good activity. So what I did when I went through this was first just to kind of study the data nugget, and I came up with sets of questions that if I was having students work with this, what would I ask to get them, for example, to engage with the background information? What would I want the students to do in terms of the data analysis and the finishing, completing the data? What would I want the students to do in terms of interpreting the graph? So I just thought through the things that I would normally have the students do with a data nugget, but I'm going to add the additional layer of kind of upping the student interest by doing this in the form of a mystery. So I took this data nugget and I turned it into a form where the students are actually acting as if they are graduate students. So it starts off, they receive an admission letter from a college. They are accepted into a program. They get to the college. Their professor isn't there. He's missing. So then the mystery is to figure out what has happened to their professor so that they can start their graduate school experience. So I just kind of came up with that scenario. If you feel like you're not someone that's especially good at coming up with mystery scenarios, take your favorite mystery book and just kind of insert your lesson into the what is actually happening with that mystery. That makes it very adaptable to different grade levels. So just go to your library, your media specialist, and ask them what books they have available that might be a good setup for a mystery. What are the students checking out that they kind of like in the first place? So that just gives you a starting point. So the second thing that you need to do is have that location in your Google Drive where you're going to store your information. And so to do that, what you would do is you would come to the place in your drive that you want to keep everything. You would do new and you do folder. So I've created a folder here that is called Escape Rooms. And in that Escape Rooms folder, I have various different places that I'm actually keeping information. We're going to be working on the folder that says March Grass Google Form Breakout Room. You're going to see me jump out into some other areas of my drive just because I've created another breakout room. So I'm using some of the same materials. So I'm just going out to get them. But I really encourage you to keep everything in the same place because it makes populating your forms a lot easier. So every time you do a new form, you might want to not recreate the wheel. Don't create a new form. Just take one you've already done. You can change the template, change the backgrounds, and change the questions. But instead of having to start everything over, you can just copy and paste new information into a form that you've already set up. So it makes it a lot less work overhead on the long run. Because I know a lot of the criticism of breakout rooms is these are really complicated. They're hard to make. It takes a lot of time. Yeah, the first one takes a lot of time, especially when you've never done it before and you're kind of thinking through and troubleshooting and you're going back and forth between the teacher view and the student view to make sure you have everything right. So just know that after you've done one, then you're going to beg, borrow, and steal from yourself after that, and you're not going to recreate it. So I'm going to go to my marsh grass Google Form breakout room, and I'm just going to start a new one from scratch because I want you to be able to see from start to finish how we actually do this process. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to add a new document and I'm going to choose a Google Form. I'm going to choose a blank form. And I can go through and change all the background palettes and the templates and the colors and the styles and all that. I'm not going to do that in this. If you're not familiar with Google Forms at all, that will be where you will either want to get on YouTube and watch one of the plethora of tutorials that are out there. You can just go to YouTube and search, how do I create a quiz in Google Forms? Or you can check with your science specialist or honestly, your content specialist at your co-op. And most of us have spent a lot of time supporting teachers with Google types of forms, anything in the Google Education Suite. So we'd be more than happy to help you if you need some help with that as well. So now that I've created this form, I'm just going to call this the Salt Marsh Mystery because our research, our data nugget, is on the salt marsh. That's not very creative. You could come up with something catchier. And the first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to add I'm just going to add another section, and that's not what I wanted to do. Let me delete that. So we have the Salt Marsh Mystery, and I actually meant to add a section to that. Here we go. So I had a form description. I'm going to get rid of this question. I don't need this one here. All right, so now I've got two sections. In my first one, I have a section that says form description, and this is where I'm just going to kind of set the students up with kind of background on what this mystery is actually about. And after this section, we will look at the student version so that we can see what that is. So in getting the students set up, I am going to pause this video for a minute because I'm going to jump out and copy and paste text that I already wrote from another document that sets up this mystery. So I will be right back. Okay, I copied my text, and so I'm going to paste it into my Google Form. And I am going to just kind of make that look a little bit better. So here it says click on the admissions letter to your right to begin. I'm going to put click on the admissions letter in the link below because I'm going to have students access it that way. Okay, so this is setting students up. So as I mentioned, this particular mystery, the students are accepted into a graduate program. So I need to get the link to my admissions letter. And when you paste a link into the description of a Google Forms, when it's in the student view, that link will be live. And so I'm just going to come to my Google Drive, and I have an admissions letter down here at the bottom. So I'm going to get the link to that admissions letter. And I have it set where anyone with the link can view. I want to make sure that I'm not limiting my students. I come back to the Google form, and I'm just going to paste my link in there. And it doesn't look live, but here's where we will go ahead and look at the student view. So I'm just going to paste that in my browser. And here's the student view. So as you can see, part of the reason we want to look at our student view always, I didn't put a space between 2.0 and this, so it kind of messed up my format. And then the students, after they've read that, they're presented with next. So they would open up that admissions letter, and it's going to open in another tab. So now they'll have that available to keep referring back to as they work with the mystery. So let me go back to the teacher version. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the title up here to make my title pop up so that we don't have untitled up there. And I'm going to fix that little section where I didn't leave the space. Okay, so now I've got that ready. So when the students click next, I want it to take them to the first clue. And so in this one, we're going to put, look, a postcard was enclosed with the letter. What does it mean? Okay, so I actually I made a postcard in Google Slides, and I have it in the drive. So I'm going to come down here for postcard, and I am going to get a link to that postcard. Again, I have to have the link set where anybody can access it. So I've got done. I'm going to come back over here. Whoops, wrong one, right here. And I'm going to just paste the postcard there. And this time now, I want the students to do something because they have the admissions letter and they have the postcard. So now I'm wanting the students to solve what the clue is. And there are some clues on the postcard. Let me open the postcard so you can get a look at what it actually looks like. So in Google Slides, you can save a document as a PDF. And so this was just a slide where I inserted some pictures. I have an A, a B, and a C, and a D. And then I have a letter to the graduate student. And there is information on the back of the card that says the postcard contains the code you'll need to enter the building. Be sure to bring it with you when you come to meet with me on Monday. Good luck. So now I want a question that makes the students figure out what the code is. I have A, B, C, D, but what's the order that they need to put that in? And so to do that, I'm going to add a question. And in my question, I'm just going to prompt the students. You probably want to word this a little better, but just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to say which of the 4 images corresponds to the admissions letter. And I should say which of the 4 images on the postcard, but we're just going to keep going. Okay, and then I'm also going to be specific and say type the letters, and in parentheses I'm going to put case sensitive in alphabetical order, space but no comma between letters. And so that way, I'm going to do this as a short answer. That way the students will type, so for example, if it's A and B, they'll type A, B. And I'm going to actually change this to type the letter. That way it suggests that it could be 1 letter and it could be more than 1. So now what I've done is the students are going to type those in there, but here's where we kind of get to the fun part. When you're using a Google form, you can do response validations, and that will prevent a student from going to the next section until they get the correct answer. So I'm going to require this question. I'm going to click on the 3 dots that are down in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to select response validation. So now, because they are entering letters, I'm going to put text, and it has to contain. I have different options here, but I want it specifically to exactly contain A, B, D, which is the correct answer to this one. So for the custom error text, what I'm going to say is invalid combination, please try again. And I think I'm actually going to say look closely for clues, and then please try again. So I have required that. So now let's take a look at what that looks like on the student end. So I'm going to come back to my form. I'm going to click next. And here is where the students would access the postcard. So they could click on that link. Look, a postcard was enclosed with the letter. What does it mean? And here we have the which of the 4 images corresponds to the admissions letter. So what would happen if the student clicked C and hit submit? Now normally this would just be next, about going to the next section. And it wouldn't let them go to the next section, but in this case I don't have another section yet. Let me go back actually and come back over here. Let's go ahead and make a next section so we can see what that actually looks like. So let me add a question. I wanted a section. Let me pull this section up. I guess I have to pull the question down. Here we go. Okay, back over here. Let me refresh this. Okay, Salt Marsh Mystery, we hit next. The student put C and they hit next. Instead of taking them to the next section, it says invalid combination, look closely for clues, please try again. So let's say the student comes back and this time they say, oh, I missed that. So now I'm going to put A, B, D. Now when they click next, it takes them to the next section. The next section just says option 1 because we haven't created any questions or content there yet, but it took them to the next section. So you could give the students a prompt or a clue where if they miss it, it points them in the right direction, maybe gives them a little hint to help them get it correct. And that's just kind of a way of encouraging students to put a little more effort into that. One thing about response validations that I need to mention is that they don't work for all the question types. A response validation will work with short answer, and it works with multiple choice, and there might be 1 or 2 other ones, but I know that some of the options, the response validation isn't something that you can select. And you'll know that because when you click on the little drop down below, see, I don't have anything in there right now, right? I've got it on multiple choice, and it's actually not giving me the option for response validation. And I said multiple choice does. Maybe I have to put more. I think maybe I have to put more options in there, but I think multiple choice is one of the ones it does. But short answer is really kind of the best because we want the students to be typing anyway. So let me give you an example of another place that I use the short answer text. For my next section, I had the students, after they had the code on the postcard, remember it said that that was the code that they entered to get into the building. So I'm going to put as their next section, congratulations, you obtained the code to enter the building. Please proceed to the 5th floor. So now I've got the students going to the 5th floor. And for the description portion of that, if I had a link or something that I want to put in there, I could. In my case, I would link to the data nugget because for the next section, what I had them do, I had another short answer and I had the students type the hypothesis exactly as it appears, case sensitive, spacing, and punctuation. And so the students are having to interact with the data nugget because they're having to find the hypothesis that's in there. So my response validation for that one, if they don't get it correct, I might have the response validation be a hint about what a hypothesis should look like what clues are there that would guide them to the hypothesis. So it might be something about the fact that it's a testable prediction about what the scientist thinks is going to happen in the course of experimentation based on the prior knowledge that's available to them. Or I could just say, remember, it's an educated guess, but that probably doesn't give them quite as much information. So this is just a start. I can work through this and add more things to it, but I do know that at least one co-op is going to be doing some escape room professional development this summer, and so that'll be in ESC Works, and even if you're at another co-op, you could potentially sign up to participate in that, or you can contact your science specialist, and your science specialist will be happy to meet with you and help you put together a digital escape room. So I would just say kind of get your materials together first and decide what you want to include, and then you can just brainstorm with your science specialist. They can put it together, help you with some ideas, and help you troubleshoot. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you share your escape rooms with us. If you make some, we'd love to look at them and see them. And potentially, if you're one of those people that is really has a heart for open source, then we can potentially post that on our co-op webpage and make sure that other teachers have access with it. Share with your friends. You know, it's always good to not have to recreate the wheel, especially if you are trying to create a more rigorous document. So good luck, and I hope you enjoy digital escape rooms.